Lesson 1.2, The Synopsis, The Swiss Family Robinson. Do you know any stories about the people who were lost in uninhabited places and were later rescued? Name them. Yes, I heard recently come across the news of two people rescued from an uninhabited island in Micronesia by the US Coast Guards. They had written a giant SOS, save our souls, on the sand. The pilots of a US Navy helicopter spotted the sign drawn on the sand and alerted the US Coast Guard. After a week long search, they found the couple who were safely taken back home. Think of one of your favorite interesting stories and fill in or draw an outline chart like the one shown below. Change or problem or challenge. Scene 1, Scene 2, Scene 3, title of the story, climax, the most interesting or exciting point. The problem resolved, normalcy restored, end. So, whenever you are writing a story, you have to start like this, and the climax will be there, and there will be a end in normalcy. Many times, the climax is near the end. A few stories end with a climax to achieve greater effect. After the meaning of anticlimax, find the meaning of anticlimax.
A synopsis. A synopsis means a brief summary. A synopsis, the Swiss Family Robinson. First of all, before going to the reading of this lesson, I'll give a summary of this lesson. Listen carefully. William, Elizabeth and their children had been traveling in a ship when it was caught in a great storm. The ship's other passengers had left without them. William and his family, including the young children, were left to survive alone. The ship survived the night and the family found themselves within sight of a tropical desert island. Upon reaching the island, the family set up a makeshift camp, that is a temporary camp. The father knew that they had to prepare for a long time on the island and make as much provision for the future as for the immediate wants. The family spent the next few days securing themselves against hunger. William and Fritz made several trips to the ship in their efforts to bring ashore everything useful from the vessel. They were their children. William and Elizabeth had some children named Fritz, Ernest, Jack, and Franz. Fritz made several trips to the ship in their efforts to bring ashore everything useful from the vessel. The domesticated animals on the ship were towed back to the island. There was also a great store of firearms, carpenter's tools, lumber, cooking utensils, silverware, and dishes. Initially, they constructed a tree house, but as time passed, they settled in a more permanent dwelling in the form of a cave. Now, coming to the lesson, the Swiss Family Robinson is a well-known adventure novel that people of many countries have enjoyed for more than 200 years. It has also been made into graphic novels and films. The novel, written by the Swiss clergyman Johann David is not just an adventure. It aims at teaching young people values like self-reliance, determination, love for your family, cooperation, and prudent use of resources. It also has good lessons relevant in natural sciences, good husbandry, and even mathematics. Some elements of the novel do stretch reality to a certain extent, but we must consider that it is a work of fiction and not a fact file. Given below is a synopsis and outline of its basic story. Synopsis means a brief summary. William and Elizabeth and their children had been traveling in a ship when the ship was caught in a great storm. The other passengers evacuated without them. Evacuated means left. They left the ship to save themselves. William and his family, including the young children, Fritz, Ernest, Jack, and Franz, were left to survive alone. They weathered the great storm, waiting the ship's hold. Hold means here the space in the ship for cargo. Cargo means things. So there was a space in the ship for cargo. So they weathered the great storm, waiting in the ship's hold. The ship survived the night and the family found themselves within sight of a tropical desert island. It was a tropical region and there was a desert island. The island had no trees. It was only a desert. The next morning they decided to go to the island they could see beyond the reef. Island means a place which is covered on all four sides by water. With much effort, they constructed a vessel out of tubs. Here, vessel means a boat. After they filled the tubs with food and ammunition and all other articles of value, they could safely carry their rowed towards the island. Two dogs from the ship, named Turk and Juno, swam beside them. The ship's cargo of livestock, guns and powder, carpentry tools, books, a disassembled pinnace. That means pinnace means small boats attached to a ship, and provisions had also survived. Over the next few days, William, he is the father, attached the floatable old kegs to another and built a bow that curved around them. Kegs means barrels. The family had landed successfully on the island. They set up a tent and softened the floor with arm loads of grass they cut and spread to serve as their beds. They came to a grove of trees. One tree grew what looked like goats on its trunk. One tree grew what looked like gourds on his trunk. The father told Fritz the gourds would make excellent bowls and spoons, and they cut them into various utensils. So it is a vegetable, and if they dry it, after cutting the inner part, if they dry it, they can make bowls and spoons. Now coming to a question which is here. In what way is a work of fiction different from a fact file? A work of fiction stretches reality, unlike a fact file which merely describes facts. How did the family reach the tropical island? The family reached the tropical island by making a vessel out of the tubs on the ship, filling it with food, ammunition, as well as other articles of value that they could carry, and then rowing towards the tropical island. The father told Fritz the goats would make excellent bowls and spoons, and they cut them into various utensils. After some days, Elizabeth informed William that she wanted the family to move to a safer place. Their current camp was not only exposed but also very dry and hot. If they built a house up in one of the large trees, they would be safe from jackals. Jackals are animals similar to wolves. She described a perfect tree for the project, one whose trunk was nearly 40 feet in diameter. The branches were very long and extended straight out from the trunk, making them perfect platforms for the structure. Later, when determining the height of the lowest branches, the father taught the boys geometry and how to use triangles to measure big objects. He measured a defined distance from the trunk, then he calculated angles using several measured rods, determining that the lowest branch was 30 feet off the ground. Why did mother wish to shift the family to a tree house? Mother wished to shift the family to a tree house because their camp was not only exposed but also dry and hot. She knew that the tree house would also keep them safe from jackals. The men knotted a rope at certain intervals and attached pieces of bamboo in each knot. Thus, they created their ladder. Father returned to the beach and collected driftwood, thinking it would be perfect to build a sledge on runners rather than wheels. Later, they used it to transport materials. Meanwhile, Elizabeth announced that the garden she had been tending was producing healthy plants. Runners means stripes on which something slides. Corn, melons, pumpkins, and cucumbers were already growing. The next day, only the father and Fritz traveled to the woods, exploring and finding such exotic plants as only with waxy fruit from which candles could be made. Fritz discovered a tree exuding a rubbery sap from which his father claimed that they could make boots. Thinking ahead of the next winter, father decided to create a place safe from the elements, a strong storage spot to protect themselves and their belongings. Fritz came up with the idea of a cave. Not finding one, they thought of carving out their own cave in the rock abutting their camping site. On the smooth face of the rock, father marked the dimensions for an opening and they picked away at the hard surface with their axes, chisels, hammers, and shovels. Over the next several days, the family cut windows in the rocks to allow for cross currents of air and for sunlight to enter the cave. When they had finished, they had 4 rooms complete with a fireplace. They now had a new winter home. Because of the low light, the cave house they had built felt oppressive. To remedy this, father and Jack rigged up a new light. They found a bamboo pole that would reach from the floor to the ceiling. Then, after securing it, Jack climbed to the top of the pole and hung a large oil lamp that they had rescued from the ship. One day, they found that one of the family's huts had been completely destroyed and the cultivated fields around it had been trampled and ruined. There were huge footmarks everywhere. Father saw massive damage to trees as well as many huge footprints which he identified as belonging to an elephant herd. The next morning, the family began to design a new defense to discourage all wild animals from entering their cultivated lands. They also finalized their ideas about the new residence. Rather than building a house on stilts, which the elephants could knock down easily, they would use 4 strong trees growing in a square near one another as the foundation. The trees were of equal size, approximately 12 feet apart. Thus, they built another safe home. The meaning of exuding is giving out or emitting. Abutting means having common boundary. Oppressive means distressing. How did the mother occupy herself while the tree house was being built? How did the mother occupy herself while the tree house was being built? The answer will be, while the tree house was being built, mother kept herself occupied by tending the garden that was now producing healthy plants. What was the third place the family decided to reside in? Why did they wish to shift there? The third place that the family decided to reside in was the cave. They wished to shift there for safety reasons and for warmth during the winter season. What made the family change over to their fourth residence? What precaution did they take before building it? Answer will be, one day they found that one of their huts had been completely destroyed by a herd of elephants. So the family designed their fourth residence using 4 strong trees growing in a square near one another as the foundation. They avoided the use of stilts to prevent the elephants from knocking them down. Do the changes in the family's residence remind you of the history of man's evolution? The answer will be, the changes in the family's residence were not entirely similar to the history of evolution. The family changed residences from a tent to a tree house to a cave and then back to a tree house. In the history of evolution of man, man first lived in a cave and then made wooden huts and tree houses. Years passed and the young boys were now young men and their parents were very proud. They called the island New Switzerland. Many adventures occurred over the years. On the shore of another island, Fritz had knocked down an albatross which was threatening to attack him and found a rag tied to the large bird's leg. Albatross means a large, long-winged seabird. On the rag was a message that an Englishwoman had been stranded on the smoking rock. Fritz had no idea how old the message was. His father suggested that smoking rock sounded like a reference to a volcano. Since there were no volcanoes in the vicinity, the bird might have come from hundreds of miles away. However, Fritz felt that someone needed his help and he was determined to do his best to find the sender. Before returning home, he had written his own note on the rag, retied it to the albatross leg, and had watched the bird fly off. The note told whoever received it, "Do not despair, help is near." Fritz then successfully rescued the young woman, Jenny Montrose. Though shy at first, soon she got used to living with the Robinson family. One day, they saw a ship which had laid another. An encampment had been set up on one of the smaller islands. After checking the people through their spyglass, Fritz and his father decided to announce themselves after they had returned home and cleaned it up. They did not want the crew to think they were savages. The next day, Fritz and his father met the captain and told him their own history as well as Jenny's. To everyone's surprise, it had been Jenny's father who had inspired the captain's search. He believed his daughter was still alive after 3 years. The captain had decided to attempt to find her. With a burst of celebration, the family, passengers, and crew of the British vessel headed towards New Switzerland. Everyone Everyone was amazed by the prosperity and good health of the survivors. As the day entered, the father realized that decisions must be made about who wanted to stay on the island or return with the ship. Elizabeth and her husband did not wish to live anywhere but on the island. They had been there for so long and had grown used to their life. How did Fritz learn about another victim forsaken in a far-away island? Fritz learned about another victim forsaken on a far-away island with the help of a rag that was tied to an albatross leg whom he had knocked down. Who was the victim and how long had she survived? Answer will be: the victim was a young English woman, Jenny Montrose, and she had survived for 3 years. Who is included in the word everyone in everyone was amazed? The term everyone in everyone was amazed refers to the passengers and the crew of the English ship. Jenny asked if anyone would support her return to England. Fritz was the first to respond. He offered cheers for us who are going to Europe. Ernst, on the other hand, wanted to stay on the island. Jack also decided to stay back. Franz, the youngest boy, decided to join Fritz in leaving. Franz wanted a chance to receive an academic education. Before Fritz left, he told his parents of his love for Jenny and his wish to marry her. The father had kept a record of all the adventures they had had on the island. He handed over the journals to the captain to be published. Then the ship departed. How does the adventure come to a happy end? The adventure came to a happy end with the father, mother, Jack and Ernest deciding to live on the island and Fritz, Franz and Jenny going back to England. Fritz wished to marry Jenny and Franz wanted to get an academic education.
English workshop. Two separate words combined together to make a new word with a different meaning. They form compound words. They form compound words. Use a dictionary. Find the meanings of the following compound words. Arm loads. A load that can be carried with one's arms. A load that can be carried with one's arms. Driftwood. A wood that has been washed onto the shore. A wood that has been washed onto the shore by the action of the sea waves and winds. By the action of the sea waves and winds. Cross currents. Movements of air or water. Movements of air or water moving in opposite direction. Moving in opposite direction. Footprints. The impression left by a foot. The impression left by a foot. The impression left by a foot. Fireplace. A place for a domestic fire. A place for a domestic fire to keep warm. A place for a domestic fire to keep warm. Spyglass. A small telescope to watch distant objects. A small telescope to watch distant objects. The following words can be used as nouns as well as verbs. Make two sentences of your own using them as a noun in one and a verb in another. A. Hold. Noun. She has a strong hold over her children. Verb. Let me hold the bag for you. B. Value. Noun. The value of happiness is infinite. The value of happiness is infinite. Verb. It is important. It is important. important. It is important for youngsters to value money. To value money. It is important for youngsters to value money. Knot. Noun. The knot that she made was tight. The knot that she made was tight. T-I-G-H-T. Tight. Verb. Knot your shoelaces. Knot your shoelaces. Shoelaces. S-H-O-E-L-A-C-E-S. Travel. Noun. Her travel from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. Her travel from Kashmir to Kanyakumari was an adventurous one. Was an adventurous one. Was an adventurous one. Return. Noun. On my brother's return. On my brother's return. On my brother's return, his friends threw him a party. His friends threw, T-H-R-E-W, threw a party. Verb. I shall return home. I shall return home On the 15th of this month, on the 15th of this month from London. I shall return home on the 15th of this month from London. Reach. Noun. The packet was beyond her reach. The packet, P-A-C-K-E-T. The packet was beyond her reach. Verb. You will reach your destination by night. You will reach your destination. D-E-S-T-I-N-A-T-I-O-N. Destination by night. Knock. Noun. The knock on the door was loud. The knock on the door was loud. L-O-U-D, loud. L-O-U-D, loud. The knock on the door was loud. Verb. Knock on the door. Knock on the door before getting in. Knock on the door before getting in. Knock on the door before getting in. Getting, G-E-T-T-I-N-G. Attack. Noun. The attack on the enemy country was so bad. The attack on the enemy country. The attack on the enemy country was so bad. Verb. The leopard attacks the deer. The leopard attacks the deer. D-E-E-R. Mark. Noun. His performance is up to the mark. His performance. P-E-R-F-O-R-M-A-N-C-E. P-E-R-F-O-R-M-A-N-C-E. Performance. His performance is up to the mark. Verb. I mark all the important points while reading. I mark all the important points while reading. Given in a mixed order below are some good human attributes of the family. Pick out each from the box and write it against each line that reflects it. Courage and daring, perseverance and positive attitude, foresight, family bonds, humanity and sensitivity, resourcefulness, knowledge and its application, cautiousness. A. The father told Fritz the gods would make excellent bowls and spoons and they cut them into various utensils. The answer is resourcefulness. After some days, Elizabeth informed that she wanted the family to move to a safer place? The answer is cautiousness. Thinking ahead of winter, father decided to create a place safe from the elements. The answer is foresight. Father taught the boys geometry and how to use triangles to measure big objects. The answer is knowledge and its application. Knowledge and its application. He believed his daughter was still alive after 3 years. Perseverance and positive attitude. Perseverance and positive attitude. 10 years had passed and the young boys grew to be young men and their parents were proud of them. The answer is family bonds. Fritz felt that someone needed his help and he was determined to find the sender. The answer is humanity and sensitivity. Write in your own words how the Robinson family made each of their homes. First home, second home, third home, fourth home. Read the text and do this as homework. Expand the following ideas in a paragraph or two. Where there is a will, there is a way. Courage and resourcefulness are the keys to overcome problems.